Hey, team, welcome back to another episode of the Intentional Agribusiness Leader podcast. This is your host, Mark Jewell. And today I'm joined by Chris Roberts, the Chief Revenue Officer at Hummert International. Man, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. I'm excited to get into it. I think it's going to be a good conversation today. What does it mean for you, Chris, to be intentional?
Oh, for me being intentional, really it goes on two sides, right? So for me, it's real important personally,
Mm-hmm.
to be very, very focused on what my personal goals with my family, work-life balance, and then I have the company intentions, which are, passed along from the direction of the CEO, and then, how do I provide those intentions that I deem necessary to my team, and how do we execute, whether that's from the direct reporting staff all the way to the people that are making everything happen in the warehouse. So it's just a focus initiative on my part that I maintain those goals and don't drift from them.
Yeah. When it comes to the family stuff and let's just start there. When it comes to the family stuff, what is the focus there that you mentioned?
The focus is to be present
Mm.
for majority of, I think, a lot of people's lives when they're young, especially if you have start your career young and have kids young. Is it a lot of travel is involved, in order to gain industry knowledge, to learn, and early on you kind of miss a lot of things. So now my focus is definitely more so to be at all the sporting events, all of the
Mm-hmm.
um, you know banquets, and the things that your kids look out in the crowd to see if you're there or not. So that's my intent with the focus on family life, and obviously to make sure my wife is happy.
Sure. Number one focus right there.
I should have said that first.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, the reason I ask you to go a little bit deeper on that, is a lot of people talk about it. We know intuitively like that should be the main priority. If anything, yeah, I often don't see a lot of executives uh, actions and behaviors actually backing up what they say. Like we know it's important, but what is it really? What does it actually look like? Can we answer that question? And a
Yeah.
lot of people struggle.
Yeah, it's difficult. I last year I made myself coach baseball.
Mm,
um, and I was, not only does it obviously you're around for your kids, and it was a great experience, and I would coach it this year, but I'm a little more busy this year. But to me, it's a sense of community. Also, you learn about all the other kids your kids are running around with, and learn their friends and their parents, and I just think that's a very important part of culture nowadays, and that's non-existent. It just seems like carpools drop off, and so to me, it was really kind of an earthening experience.
yeah, yeah, that's cool. How old are your kids?
16, 15, and 9.
Okay, yeah, so we're in it. Yeah, you and I are in the same boat, man. We're right in it. You used an interesting word there, like I made myself coach baseball, which could be kind of negative, but it's to me it sounds more like you made it a priority,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. I mean, it's I played a lot of baseball obviously growing up, so I mean, I think that it was just really, what I had noticed is that my son wasn't doing incredibly well with friendships at school, more so just because a lot of the other parents don't have the job that I have. They're a lot more local. They don't travel the world, and he just didn't have the guy playing catch in the yard with him. All the other kids have brothers or somebody that's interested, whereas he has two sisters that are scared of a ball. So I wanted to really kind of to assure him that it was okay, and that I was going to help, and you know um
Mm-hmm.
and just, so I made myself. But when I made myself do it, I mean, it was a very good experience for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's cool. I was listening to, I think it's just like a YouTube short or something the other day, but it was a golfer, some famous golfer, just talking about like how to get your kids interested in the sport, right? And I watched this because I grew up golfing with my dad, and that was always great. We're always making time, even if we were going early in the morning, even before the course opened, we were going golfing. But the one thing that the golfer recommended, he said, it's when you go play, but when they start to get tired, like don't push them. like
Hmm.
as pertains to the sport of golf, because it just doesn't. Because when you get tired, you just start making bad decisions when you're golfing, and it becomes not fun. So for
Hmm.
anybody who golfs, you know that to be true. He said, but no matter what you do, so when you get to the end, when you get done, go into the clubhouse and sit down at the bar with them, or sit down at a table and have a Coke, right? And just or have a snack or have something, but just take an extra 15 minutes to just sit there and hang out. And he said, that's the stuff. He said, 15 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, 40 years from now, they're not going to remember what the golf score was. They're going to remember those little 15 minutes, like, dad took an extra 15 minutes when we got done to do. And I think we can do that. I thought that was a really good example, but we can do that anywhere. We don't have to go golfing.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's,
Yeah.
it's exactly right. I mean, I don't, for all the sports I've played in my life, one of the things about the only thing I remember is my dad being the first one to greet me at the fence when I was walking out. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
and whether he told me how crappy I played or how good I played, I still remember that more so than anything else.
Yep, absolutely. Well, it's so one of the big through lines that comes through all of our content around intentional leadership is that all the times in life I have become the most resentful is always because of the times in life that I've been the least intentional. And that's really like that statement is at the heart of this whole podcast. This resource that I'm hoping is touching the earbuds and truck speakers of plenty of leaders across the broad scope of agriculture to say, hey, at the end of the day, if you get the work done, great, good for you, but don't do that at the expense, right, of your time, your peace, your sleep, and that 15 minutes with your kid. you
Yeah,
know,
I tell people the same thing. It's you hear so many times about, well, I need to get caught up. I need to get caught up. So I need to stay a couple extra hours at the office. And my response is that you'll never be caught up. You'll just be less behind. I mean, that's so it can wait till tomorrow.
yeah, there's never a caught up,
No,
never a
doesn't
caught up.
exist.
Yeah, it's not a real thing. That's a myth. That is a myth. Well, let's shift gears a little bit, Chris. Talk about team attraction, retention, those kind of things. What's been working for you in the land of getting the people you want on your team and being able to keep them?
Well, right now we're going through some hiring and interviewing, for other positions that have popped up here recently. I think the interviewing process is significantly different than it used to be, and when I used to have to do it,
Mm-hmm.
and that we kind of put out feelers for all ages, all groups. There's no obviously restrictions to anything, and but what I've found is really people have become accustomed to being first interviews on Teams or Zoom or Google Meets, some sort of video chat,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a lot more comfortable and laid back. I find that here recently, if it's a face to face, it seems to be kind of a very nervous situation,
Hmm.
and
Interesting.
and I don't know. I mean, I don't know why that is. I'm sure it's the last few years of stay at home COVID things situations, or maybe
Hmm.
I think there's a lot more people to work for looking for work right now because of layoffs and that. But so what works for us is we have a very simple, or I have a very simple process. It's probably a 20-30 minute meeting on Teams or some sort of platform. And we really don't talk about the job that much. It's more about, what do you like? Because what I'm really trying to figure out is will they fit with my team?
Yep.
Before we dive into the schematics of what the job title is or what we're looking for, it's why waste that time if I feel that there's just not going to be a culture fit.
Right.
And we've gone through some of that. Unfortunately, we've had to let some people go, not because necessarily poor job performance, but just reorganization as we come out of COVID, which we may not see the end of that for another 10 years. But it's what we did is we really focused on having group meetings. I don't like to do one-on-ones. I really think that people are better to sit down and have a social interaction about goals, really kind of understand their coworkers and where they're coming from. Not, but they need to understand what purchasing does, and not just to the team's message. And so we've really done a lot more social bonding events, I would call them,
Mm-hmm.
where or it's Festivus. They can say whatever they want. There's no judgment
Yeah. Yeah.
per se. And then what I've been really trying to kind of build is when I conduct interviews, like the second interview, for example. Like we just hired two interns. Um, they just both started this week, but what I did was I did the first interview. The second interview, I brought one of the sales team members in, one of the operation, and so we could ask all sorts of different questions. Everybody felt like they were involved in the process. It wasn't just, oh, management's making another hire. It was, hey, this is a group decision. If you don't like it, we'll reconvene and find somebody else. And that's really been pretty good. I mean, the people that have come on have fit right in. Everybody's excited for them to start. It's not just oh, how long is this person going to be here? So it's just been a lot more proactive, I would say, in the interviewing process.
Cool. Does that give your guys more ownership since they're involved in that selection?
I think so for sure. I've seen it. A big part of hiring anybody, regardless of industry, is training, which we're not very good at anymore. It's more so just here's a manual, figure it out, because people are so busy and you want your ROI on those people as quick as possible. And I don't believe in that. I believe training is very, very important. And if they sit through in the interview and they get to know them somewhat personally, I found that they're willing to take them on and train them.
Yeah, I think when you have that a little bit of personal buy-in, and you have a vested interest in wanting to see that young person succeed or that new person succeed,
Yeah,
you got to almost got to vouch for them because you help bring them on board.
exactly. Yeah.
If we don't have the processes and systems in place always to do all that, then it would be a little bit more challenging. So, yeah, that's good. Well, you talked about culture. So how do you determine if someone's a cultural fit?
Well, today's day and age, that's a little more difficult. So first and foremost, you've got to kind of figure out what your culture is. So I start very simply by telling people how I manage, what my expectations are, and that I'm here. I'm not against you. I'm not here to. My job is to make sure every roadblock is removed for them to be successful. But here's the goal. Here's how we're going to get there, and then you build a culture based on leaders. And it was a very interesting thing my grandfather told me one time when I was probably like 10, riding the back of the tractor. Is that he told me that there's two types of people in the world. There's leaders and there's followers. He says it's okay to be either one, but if you're a follower, make sure you follow a leader. And that's always kind of stuck with me because it's pretty accurate. I mean, you don't just want a whole bunch of followers. So what I typically do is I just kind of find who I'm going to place in positions that are very good leaders, explain things really well, and their overall attitude is positive. Yep. They don't have knee-jerk reactions to mistakes. Mistakes happen. So I just feel that if you build a ladder system of positivity and problem solving, the culture pretty well defines itself after that.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm thinking your grandfather's statement. It's such it's one of those classic things that old timers used to say. My dad used to say something like that.
Yeah.
Two kinds of peoples in this world. There's those that do and those that talk about doing.
Yep.
Don't which one that you want to be, right?
Yeah.
So, anyway, so this idea of there's two kinds of people in the world. You got to, and it's okay to be either one, but if you're a follower, make sure that you're following a leader. That's actually, there's a lot of depth in that. That's a really intentional statement.
That's pretty heavy to drop on a 12-year-old.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. So I'm curious then. Okay, so within your culture, are there are there certain standards for leaders that are really important, things that they need to, adhere to or be able to do? Because obviously within that culture, we want people to step up and continue to carry our organization forward. I'm just curious if you have any certain super like intentional ways of curating them or certain standards that they have to uphold.
Yeah. So the way we do it, at least specifically to me in my departments that I manage, is I always really make sure I understand my weaknesses, which there's plenty. And when I look for somebody to fill one of those weaknesses, I really look, what do they replace that I can't do, and how do they do it? And then what I like is somebody to be good at one or two things so that we're not competing over one another's jobs. There always seems like there's a lot of jealousy within the workplace if somebody gets advancement or it's just drama that happens in daily life. So what I like to do is make sure that we've got a team of people that are really good at several things, so that we can counteract a little bit or crossover should one be on vacation, how what have you. But I want them to understand what they're strong at and focus on that. Use their team. That's why they're there. So you'll go through a couple rounds of that, and you'll find people that can adapt to that,
Yep.
and then you'll go through a couple people that just can't stay out of everybody else's business, and then once you go through a few of those situations, you've pretty well got yourself a real strong leadership team. And I also like to watch the managers of each department, how they interact and train. For example, if one of our departments is filling soil, it's a dirty job, but it's a very important part of our job. And I tell everybody in the soil department, if you're short a guy one day, just let me know and I'll come fill soil. It does. I'm probably the best day of my life. Um, or at least clear my head for a day. And I like to find people that will do any job, regardless of what it takes, because the overall goal is the success of the company.
There's definitely a certain type of person that fits into that bucket of willing to pitch in and do whatever it takes versus the person who shows up and says, well, it's not really my job.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. Very, very different deal. Okay. So, well, talk to us a little bit about your company. Give us, a little bit of background on Hummert and your role there.
Yeah. So Hummert International's started a long, long time ago. I think 93 years old now.
Wow.
And they are a wholesale. We are a wholesale company in the horticulture space. You almost can look at them. I'm sure everybody that does end up listening to this will remember the Hummert catalog, that if you you stubbed your toe on it, good chance you broke your foot. So they historically had been a very prominent Midwest, central United States wholesale company for the greenhouse and garden divisions.
Yep.
And they had a lot of in-sale side reps forever. They just took catalog orders. And as the internet became more and more popular in online ordering, we had to pivot, make some decisions. So we went to an outside sales rep, very heavily customer focused on service inside. And we branched off into a couple other divisions where we build our own like benches for greenhouses, and we can make germ chambers. So we have a lot of different things we do. Soil media that we can add fertilizers, biologicals, all sorts of things too.
Okay.
We really kind of Hummert really kind of made its name though by customer service. We have a delivery zone. We were delivered to customers almost like a milk route, and not feasible these days, but it did help build the business. And right now we restructured to really look into the verticals that we're good at. And we're currently coming through that analysis and well on our way to a nice profitable year.
Very cool. Good stuff, man. Well, what do you fill yourself up with when it comes to, in terms of making sure that you're ready and prepared as a leader? What are you reading? What are you listening to? I know the Intentional Agribusiness Leader podcast is on your list these days. We talked about that, but what else?
Yeah.
What are you reading or listening to that people ought to be paying attention to?
I wish I still read like I used to. Now it seems like all I read is contracts. But one of my go-to books whenever I kind of get stuck with something is, I really, really recommend Shoe Dog by Phil, Phil Knight's memoir. You want to talk about not only just a great book and a great story, but the ups and downs and what they went through to build that company, and how close it was to bankruptcy multiple times. And what I really enjoy about it is there's so many different ideas in there that they toss around as a group that seem crazy, but they agreed on them and they pulled through and they made them work. I think to me, it's one of my favorite books I've ever read, and I read it all the time.
Yep.
I'm a very tactical person, so I really like the old Tom Clancy's and the the just kind of those fun, take your mind off everything books.
Yeah.
And I actually read more of that now, just because I want to escape for a while, just kind of get myself fresh. And as far as what I listen to, a few podcasts, a lot of them are what my kids tell me to listen to, and I only listen to those to make sure it's not something that's inappropriate.
Right.
Yeah. But most of them end up being pretty funny. I mean, I love, Joe Rogan a lot.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I love that you brought up the fiction idea, because I think it's required for all of us to take a deeper look at how can you just decompress. So much of what people are doing is, I mean, it happens 9 out of 10 conversations. How you been? Man, I've been busy. Well, I'm getting to the points, Chris, where I'm like, I, I, I don't want to like, don't come to me in a conversation if you want to, like, if you want to have a conversation with me and I ask you how you been, don't tell me you've been busy. I've been really intentional lately about coming up with something better to say, like, I am busy. You know what? It's the 4th of March as we record this. This is the busiest time of year in my business. Now, once the farmers hit the field, we'll slow down a little bit. But January 1 to March 31, like we run for Q1, we're running. That's the theme. And I'm still trying to come up with like, okay, well, how am I? Well, I'm feeling pretty good right now. You know what? We just picked up a really good customer, a few new good customers, and one really big one, and that's going to really drive the business. I'm feeling pretty confident about that. I'm really proud of my daughter right now because she's kicking butt and taking names in volleyball. We went 5-1 this weekend.
That's great.
I'm trying to lead by example because I think culture is caught, not taught. But I'm trying to start to the shift that for people because most of us don't have any sort of a ritual to slow down.
Yeah, that's very accurate.
So the only answer I have is, well, I'm busy because I've been doing so many things I haven't had time to stop and just like decompress and process through and read a little bit of fiction and let the brain relax. By the way, that's a much better way to relax than flip on Netflix at the end of the day, which is what most of us do.
Yeah, I don't know how to get into my Netflix account.
Yeah. Good for you. We actually, when we moved into this house almost 2 years ago, 2 years ago in May, we decided no TV. We just didn't put one in. And there are 3 of them in the attic. We should probably just sell them.
Can't do. I couldn't do old no TV because I'm too much of a sports junkie. So
yeah. Well, and I enjoy, like we enjoy sports. We'll still, so if we want to have a movie night, what we do is we set up the projector out here in the family room, and we will that way we put up the speaker that I use for like our live events and everything, so it feels like we got surround sound. You got the movie theater, but when it's done, we pack it all up, we put it back in the storage containers and put it away. And that way, when we're getting ready for school in the morning, somebody's not sitting here popping on Netflix, to watch some stupid cartoon while we're getting ready, or whatever. Or I'm not tempted to sit down at night, when we can be doing other things like going for walks or being outside,
right?
Or, go clean guns or something like that, right? That's just a little bit a better bonding experience than just watching more TV.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and it's something they look forward to. They see the speakers coming out. They know exactly what's going to happen.
Yep. We try to make it into a ritual. It's like once every other week or something like that. We're doing, so a couple times a month, maybe 3 times a month. If there's something unique and special, like yesterday, Caitlin Clark from broke the record for scoring, in NCAA basketball. So yeah, we'll pop on a little bit of Hulu and get that going so that we can all sit and watch it. We may be watching on a computer, but at least we're watching a little bit of history getting made. So, but it stuff like that, just having a good book that you like to lose yourself in for a minute, like it's okay to be intentional for yourself too. And I think a lot of people don't realize that that's okay.
It's necessary.
Yeah. What kind of like hobbies and stuff like that? And it sounds like you're a tactical guy, but I'm curious, what are your hobbies? Hunting, fishing, get outdoors, anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, when I was younger, hunting, fishing for sure. I always follow sports, baseball, basketball, football, but obviously I'm too old to do most of that now. So, as you stated, I love to golf. So if I can sneak away, whether it's the driving range or even indoor facility or something, just put my earbuds in and or take my son out for a round. Most of my leisure activities revolve around golf now.
Nice. Well, if you're ever in the Carolinas, if you get up around Raleigh, come out here. As I record these podcasts, I watch people tee off on the 8th tee in the backyard. So we're right on the Chapel Ridge Golf Course. So, well, let's go back and talk a little bit more about team development, team leadership. As you try to build up your team, whether it's your sales team or just operationally. One of the things we've been talking about in our business a lot lately in terms of training people has been standards. How do you create and uphold standards inside the business that really get you the kind of results you've been getting?
Standards are pretty interesting. So we have guidelines, I would say, that are to be followed specific to your job title, and then we have what I would consider standards of what the company expects as far as
Mm-hmm.
performance goes. But what I do within that is I ask everybody that comes on to take 6 weeks, go through the process, look at everything we're doing. No idea is a bad idea. If you see something that we're missing, that we have as a management group or as a company in whole have not figured out, please bring it to my attention. There's always someone younger, somebody smarter, somebody better at something that can come in and help fix what is the standard and create a new standard. So our standards they move constantly based on, can somebody is this person that just came in, they're more efficient because they've changed the way that, the pendulum has moved a little bit, and so we create a new standard based off of that. I don't have anything fixed outside of the banking system, and
Yeah.
the absolutes that have to be there. I have a very fluid business plan and very
Yeah.
fluid chart, and that is that I want open ideas to be discussed all the time, whether I'm involved or whether it's to your department manager. And we have a wrap up meeting, a management meeting every Thursday, and we have all of these conversations about this is what I learned this week, and then we just talk about moving the target and the standards that they should be.
Cool. I like that a lot. I mean, especially when you have somebody who's new, they're in there for 6 weeks, and they've got they feel empowered to actually share whatever, maybe a different perspective because they've got the freshest eyes on that process. Hey, here's what was difficult to learn. Here's what was really challenging about this. This is what I think is really good about this. Like that's yeah, I hadn't thought about that. That's a great it's a great resource because they're the freshest and newest people that you've got.
And they typically have, with movement towards AI and all these other platforms, they typically understand them, whereas I will need years to really fully understand their capabilities and see them in action. They can do it in 5 minutes.
Do you get any pushback from people that have been there for a while who like to say, "Oh, we just always have done it this way"?
Certainly. But we have interaction. For example, I'm running a training tomorrow on a new CRM that we put in place.
Mm-hmm.
And what I do is I bring some of the older staff and some of the newer hires in, and then we have just a conversation around the training so that they don't, you know, they can understand versus me just regurgitating what I've got on my notes to explain to them. And typically, I don't run the training. It ends up being the people that are more advanced in the software. But you'll always have pushback, regardless of what it's in.
Mm-hmm.
It's just people.
It's super important for people to hear you say that because often when we have a new idea or a new direction that we want to go, a new software we want to implement, whatever the thing is, right? Anything new, uh, we will receive some negative pushback, generally speaking, some resistance. We're going to receive resistance. We might as well expect it, but a lot of people take it really personal. And that's one encouragement I would just encourage people who are implementing change. Like, don't take it personal. Like that is, that person or that set of people probably are thinking about things a little bit differently. They've got a story. This is an opportunity for you guys to just get in the trenches a little bit and work through it and get to know each other better and understand why the pushback. Right?
Yeah, and like you said, everybody's going through something. So
Mm-hmm.
when you walk at the door, my deal is that personal stuff stays outside. If it's something that we need to discuss privately, then I'm certainly here to listen. But as far as using your dislike for something because of personal reasons, it's not a good reason for the company.
Yeah, that's a great point. Put that on a sticky note and put it on the computer. Good. Well, Chris, what one last question before we start to bring it in for a landing. In our industry, we tend to have our walls up. We don't talk a lot about our feelings necessarily, but I think vulnerability still plays a role in intentional leadership. So I'm just curious on where does where does vulnerability come into play as it pertains to intentional leadership in your book?
So it's a very good question because everybody makes mistakes.
Hmm.
And for me, I've made so many over my life that I can't even count. Um, and so what I like to do is show people that when I do make a mistake, I will make sure that they understand that I made the mistake. And we talk about, it's okay to make mistakes. You learn from mistakes. And if if you lead by just I'm perfect, I don't make mistakes, I'm going to blame somebody else, and you have no vulnerability. You set a standard that cannot be, you can't get it. Like they'll never achieve it because they don't understand what it means to be vulnerable. They don't understand what it means to be humiliated. They don't understand what it means to cost the company money and that you will survive this. They immediately make, if you don't lead by that example, everybody's just afraid of getting fired. They don't, they won't take any risk. They won't calculated risk, I should say. They'll never achieve what you want them to achieve. And my whole thing is I tell everybody that my greatest life lesson or life achievements are the people I have trained to go on and be successful at other jobs, whether it's within Hummert or whether they move on to a different part of business and they become CEO or whatever. I mean, to me, that's the coolest thing on earth. But I guarantee you, those people were vulnerable, to get that. Because
Yeah.
I mean, you sit through just an interview and you think about, as a 22-year-old kid and you go in for your first job interview, real job interview, not like the grocery store.
Yeah.
The you just think about you're sweating and you don't really know what to say, and how vulnerable you are then. If you're
Mhm.
still that way when you get to be in your 30s, 40s, I think that's a good thing. I think that it shows that your excitement level is there. And if you come in like a robot, what are you really showing?
Yeah. I think pride is such a killer for so many leaders. It's one of those things. I mean, sure, be proud of your work, be proud of your people, all that. And when your pride gets a little bit goes into overdrive, right? And it's like, oh, I can't let people know I've made a mistake
Yeah.
or whatever. A, that's dangerous. But B, it's inauthentic. We all make mistakes. Nobody's perfect. We didn't get that gene. That didn't come through for us, And
Not everybody can be Tom Brady.
that's, we're not all going to be the GOAT.
I tell this story to people, especially the younger generations when they come in, their first interviews with me or anybody, is that when you see vulnerability when you're young and learn from it. So I grew up on a small farm here in Central Illinois, and I used to skip school to ride in the back of the tractor with my grandfather when he farmed. It
Mm-hmm.
was, and just listen to the stories he told, and Korean War, and came back from the war, and he was a mailman so that he had insurance for the family, and then he farmed in his free time. And just the stories you hear from that generation is their whole life was vulnerable. Everything was up in the air, and for them to persevere through
Mm-hmm.
what I can't even imagine. I just it's nothing is impossible. Just so what's that Disney movie, The Robinsons? Just keep moving forward. That's all you can do.
That's some great advice and a great way to frame it up and bring it in for landing. It is such an essential component of just, man, like we all go through it. We all have our ups and downs. Might as well at least be open enough to talk about that. And by the way, this is one of the big things that happens at almost every event that we produce, and then also in our coaching programs, is people they put themselves on an island and they think that nobody else could be screwing this up as badly as I am out here, and so they start to isolate, and it's
Mm-hmm.
that isolation that makes them they have a harder time leading because they're so isolated. Nobody can relate. And if they're not a leader, not a positional leader, but have maybe they're a team member, then all of a sudden they start to drift away and the leaders start wondering like, hey, what's going on? Right. Because they're now distant from the team. They feel separate. And if we could break down that barrier and help people just understand, like we all have challenges, we all have insecurities. Like what we're doing is the best thing that we can show up and do today, which is do the best we can.
That's right.
Right. And keep trying to raise those standards and continue on. So, man, this has been a cool conversation. How do we find out more about Hummert?
Best thing to do is check out the website. It's just hummert.com. Um, and then, you can sign up for our newsletter on there, and just be looking for some more exciting things to come.
Sounds good, man. We'll be doing it. All right, man. Appreciate you being on here today. It was a great conversation with Chris Roberts from Hummert International.